and then it'll be streaming. All right. All right, dude, we're live. So, and we'll hit record too, so we can get both things done at once. All right. All right, everyone, welcome to another episode, Conspiracy or Just a Coincidence. I have my favorite guest, the all-time highest person that's been on this show, the Oddman. Oddman, thanks for gracing me with your presence once more.
Yeah, man. Just so people know, I'm not actually high right now.
Yeah, that's just a bad phrase of me using it. I mean,
Well,
most frequent.
Yeah, but to each his own, man. And no, thank you very much, man. I always really enjoy being on with you. So I'm excited.
Yeah, dude. So I guess I said in my tweet, you're the only person that I think that one of the only people that reads more than me. So what kind of stuff have you been working on lately? And then we'll get to like the world.
Yeah, man. So I've been kind of studying a couple of different things. One is the Franklin scandal, but there's just so much going on there that I've got a long ways to go. It's kind of one of those that always meant to look into, but just never got around to it. And I kind of didn't really think it was as deep as it is. Oh my gosh! So,
which one are you reading? Or are you just like
not the Franklin cover-up? I think it's called The Franklin Scandal by Nick Bryant.
Okay, I don't know which one I read. I read one of them when I first started.
Okay.
Yeah, but I forgot which book.
I think this is the newer one. It's not new, but it's newer than the first one. I think the first one is written by DeCamp, who was the lawyer.
Yeah.
Who got directly involved in the case. So,
okay.
And I'm gonna have to read that one now that I'm into this other one. But
that's the one I read, the one by John DeCamp. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear it's really good, and I started to read it first, but I found this book, and I was like, I didn't even know that one was out, and I listened to an interview by the author, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna read this one first.
Could you explain? If I'm sure people know it, but when I first started so what is the Franklin scandal?
Yeah, well, it started in early '80s, and there was in Franklin, Nebraska, there was a little kind of like it was a bank, a local bank, like a credit union, and it was called the Franklin Credit Union, I believe, and it was supposed to be a bank for minorities, and
I didn't know that.
After a while, some things didn't add up, and long story short, this guy Lawrence King, who was the president of the bank, he got busted because there was $40 million missing from this little credit union. Mm-hmm. And that kind of drew the attention of a lot of people, and they started looking into it. And also there's this, it's called Boys Town, which is still there. It was this home for boys, for orphan boys. And this guy was connected to Boys Town. He'd been seen there a lot. And this guy kind of stood out because he was kind of a big guy. He was African American. He kind of looked like a pimp a little bit. And he drove these fancy sports cars, and he was just known as spending unbelievable amounts of money, numerous homes, and he flaunted it. So I kind of caught up with him.
Yeah.
And I've got a long ways to go in there, but it gets dark for anybody that hasn't looked into it. It gets extremely dark. A lot of, we'll just say child abuse, the kind I'm talking about. And a lot of
who is I don't know if you're that one guy with all of his testimony. He went missing, and they even imprisoned him. But the stories, I forget his name now, but he got imprisoned because they claimed he had committed perjury, but his stories were really crazy.
I think it might be Paul Bonacci.
Yes, Paul Bonacci. Yeah,
man. What and some of those people, you just feel so sorry for them, and of course they all pretty much ended up on the streets using drugs and stuff like that because, of course, if that happened to you and you already didn't have a very good life, because it seemed like that they preyed on these kids who had, were come from broken homes mainly and had problems anyway. And it's
Yeah.
horrible. And the cover up, the cover ups by all these officials from the FBI to the, like the local police chief was in on it. He was molested. He
Oh,
was,
dude.
doing things to children. And I mean, it just goes on and on. Even some of the people in the state legislature seemed like they were trying to cover up, and it was just
It
unbelievable.
was rampant. Yeah. And I think the cops and the FBI that were there
Yeah.
they were involved. Like, dude, it was, and I think it was right around, it was with when Bush was president, right? That's when it toppled. Or
Yeah,
Reagan.
yeah, George H.W. Bush, yeah, the
Yeah.
senior Bush, yeah. And there was even like this guy, Lawrence King, who actually sang at a couple of Republican
Yeah.
conventions, and he was the head of the Black Republican, I don't think it was caucus, I forget what it was called now, but so King he had been a staunch Democrat and had been openly supportive of Democrats, but for some reason he changed his tune. I guess because he just went where the money was at the
Right.
time, and he even got to sing at a couple of. I think he
Right.
sang. Did he sing the Star Spangled Banner? I
Yeah. I think
believe
he sang the national anthem. Yeah.
national anthem. Yeah, at a couple of these Republican conventions, and he had his picture made with George H.W. Bush,
Wow, dude.
and there was all these people that would cover for him that were, even high up in the national government. So this guy was connected, and I think that was, it was kind of like the Jeffrey Epstein scandal before Epstein. He was
Right.
probably even worse from everything I've read. Of course, there's probably a
Oh,
lot of stuff we don't know about Epstein, but
that's true. Right. Well, dude,
man, it was
I
bad.
think he got a lot of his cash from selling coke that was like involved with the Iran Contra scandal. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure, right?
yeah. It seems like that they've connected that. I haven't actually read that part, but I did hear John DeCamp in a video, like in an interview. He was talking about that.
Yeah.
And wow, it all fits together, when you start looking at it. There was that one guy. I don't have my notes in front of me. Because I've been straddling these two different books like an idiot, and now
No,
I'm
it's
starting
the
to get
best
things.
way.
Yeah, but there's one guy who was a friend of Larry's, and he was. They didn't really know what job he had. Some people
Yeah.
thought he was a lobbyist, but he bragged about being in the CIA, and he was procuring all these boys, and he actually got these male prostitutes into the White House when George
Right.
H.W. Bush was in there and stuff like that. So
Dude.
yeah, it goes deep, man.
It makes you wonder like how much, because this happens time and time, the Finders Club, that was like
Yeah.
another thing with it for anyone. That was like, I think in Florida but it was a national wide, right? Like it was like, upper class people, and they get
Hmm.
caught with like four kids in their trunk or car with like gruesome photos of all these poor children, and they just let the guy go. And Patch Adams, that movie, he's involved with it somehow too.
Mm.
Yeah,
Oh,
like
I didn't realize that. Yeah. Okay.
yes, and it's ironic that Robin Williams played, but that guy who's Patch Adams, of course he's hanging out in children's hospitals. Like who's that British guy? Uh,
Oh yeah, Jimmy
Yeah,
Savile.
right.
Yeah.
But he's
Yeah.
and he gets somehow roped in, but gets his way out of it. But it's sick, and like that Franklin scandal is just brutal, and how they totally were able to, the guy's not even in jail for or he might be out, but he got imprisoned, Lawrence King, for the money fraud. Had nothing
Yeah.
to do with the kids.
Yeah, and they said he got sent to like one of they call it Club Fed, which is supposed to be like this cushy
Oh,
prison that
really?
a lot of people go to that have a lot of money, and it's supposed to be, pretty nice as far as prisons go. And he's out now because I heard the author Nick Bryant on with oh gosh, what's her name? Forgetting the researcher now, Whitney Webb.
Oh,
Yeah, Whitney
okay,
Webb.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he was on with her, and he was saying
Oh,
that
interesting.
Yeah, he actually got in touch with Larry King or
No
Lawrence King,
way.
and I guess he hung up on him. But he lives in Virginia, I believe is what he said. It was either West Virginia or Virginia. So,
Wow. Dude, that's wild. That's like,
I was looking at the guy who started Boys Town, this Father Flanagan, and he was Jesuit trained. They
yeah,
always seem to come up.
right.
And in 1948, I thought this was kind of interesting. Harry Truman, President Truman, actually asked him to go over to Berlin and to kind of speak to the officials there and talk about
No way.
these orphaned boys and possibly something they could do to help orphaned boys. And I thought that was interesting because, and it probably has no connections, but Truman was a Freemason and a Shriner. And it's just kind of weird how these things kind of
Wow.
always involve these guys who are in one of these different groups.
Right.
And Father Flanagan actually passed away while he was over there, died. He was pretty old, I think. And they brought his body back, and he's entombed in one of the buildings there in Boys Town. And it kind of reminded me of um, the House of the Temple.
Yeah.
And Albert Pike's entombed in the House of the Temple. And H. Spencer Lewis, the guy who started that AMORC, kind of institution,
Yeah. Right.
secret society, whatever, he's entombed in their headquarters there in, I think it's San Francisco.
Interesting.
It's kind of weird. Well, I don't know. I guess that's something people used to do, but I don't think they would really entomb people in a public
Right.
place nowadays.
Yeah.
So
No,
maybe there's nothing to it, or maybe it's some kind of weird thing that we don't quite understand.
that is really, and also it was weird with that, like in that area, just along with like the entombing I'm going with, but like they have the Nebraska spelled backwards. I don't know how you asking.
Ascar Ben or something like that.
Yeah,
Scarbon.
but that Warren Buffett was part of that group, and they would do these parties where they all cross dress.
Wow. Well, I've
Yeah,
seen
and then yeah,
okay, I've seen an old black and white picture of them, and I was like, it's so grainy though. I was like, is that dudes dressed up like women? It's kind of hard to tell, but I thought that's what was going on there. And yeah, I think there's NY Patriot was telling me that there is an Ascarbin, not Freemasons, but it's Eastern Star for the females.
huh?
And I was looking that up, and I actually pulled up something from 2019, and it said that the Shriners actually are partnered with Boys Town now to do some things. So
No way.
after everything that the Occult Patriots came out,
Right.
with all those scandals with the Shriners, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know, man. People need to start looking into this kind of thing. Maybe
Right.
investigate that whole thing now.
Yeah, dude, that whole time, and then the lead prosecutor, he dies in a, he like dies in a plane crash on the way back from the All-Star game with his 10-year-old son.
Yeah, yeah. He just told I can't remember if it was the Senate. Yeah, I think it was the Senator Lauren Smith, I think was his name.
Mhm.
He was the guy that started the investigations, and supposedly the investigator called him and told him, "Hey, I'm on my way back, and I've got the evidence, and we're going to bust him. We've got everything we need."
Yeah.
And then he mysteriously dies in this airplane crash, and they never find like the back seats, and they never find his briefcase that he had with
Of
him.
course. Of course. It's just, it's so weird how that always happens.
Yeah. And it's like the Clinton death count. I mean, when you start looking at all the people that died, either suicided or died mysteriously, uh, with the Franklin scandal, people that were connected to it, it's crazy, man. It's a
Yeah.
lot of people, a lot of people.
It makes you wonder like why the Epstein thing came out.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
could they not silence it? Could they, I feel like they never let anything out if they don't want.
I do too, man. I feel like maybe, I mean, this is just a guess, but like maybe there was some hardcore blackmail going on, and it had to come out to scare the hell out of some
Mhm.
major players and maybe get them back in line. Maybe
Yeah, right.
I don't.
because it's just too, like that's so damning, the stuff that he has, and nothing else has come out of it, right? Like, so
Yeah.
Ghislaine, we'll see what happens if she even gets anything, or if she's
Yeah.
in prison. I don't know. They're just so powerful, obviously, as you know,
Hmm.
that it's just
Yeah. Like Alan Dershowitz, what a
uh,
scumbag, just the worst of the worst. And this guy has, I mean, he's not in any trouble. He's still going on I think he even goes on
I
Fox all the
all the
time.
time, dude. He is such a scumbag. That is such a good word.
Oh,
He's the one that defended Epstein, right?
yeah. Yeah. And he was actually partying with him and admitted to going upstairs and in one of his mansions or whatever,
Yeah,
looking
yeah,
for girls. But
right.
apparently he never took his underwear off. Right? I think that was his excuse. I'm like,
He's such a disgusting man
oh,
too. But yeah,
terrible.
Fox brings him on for legal advice. That's how like all these, they're just so disgustingly corrupt. I
Yes.
mean, ugh, Alan,
Mm.
just the look of that guy. I think he wanted to also, he was on Mike Lindell's. Do you remember that election symposium thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
He was, he like either was like he did a Zoom conference with it, or was like showing it. I can't remember, but he said that he was going to be Mike Lindell's lawyer and go after Dominion Voting for whatever, or no, Dominion Voting was suing Mike Lindell for defamation, or whatever, and
Yeah.
Alan's going to defend him, and he says that this is perfect, this is what we want, because then they'll have to put forward all their evidence and stuff like that.
If I was Lindell, if he's who he says he is, I wouldn't want that guy defending me.
No,
I wouldn't
dude.
want anything to do with him.
Yeah, but and that's like with the hypocrisy of this whole, like the right. It's it's just totally hypocritical having a guy like that, especially on like that QAnon side, a guy that's
Hmm.
clearly related to the Epstein scandals, but yet you're letting him defend your guy because he supports Trump or whatever it is.
Right. Right. I know, man. It's just unbelievable. It's and in the press, they don't call these people out on the right things, and it's really frustrating. But why would they? Right?
So I told you I was working on that, the Rockefeller's Medicine Men book.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
book, dude, is great. Like there's so many things in there that I took for granted. Just like how colleges were started, like they were started because the people, the Civil War happened. We had like this, industrial boom, this corporate capitalist boom, but they realized that the people were, it was still agrarian and merchant like economy for the most part, besides for them, but they needed like managers to manage their huge companies. So that's was what started them getting into fund colleges, and then it just progressed from there, because and that's how, like, then the medical field, it went from homeopathy and like lots of doctors, they weren't getting paid a lot, so they needed to decrease the amount of doctors, increase their pay, and just with propaganda and the endowments to schools, accreditation and stuff, they created this whole, and that's what our medical system is today. But it was just wild. Like, it seems so simple. Like, but I never thought about how did college and how did everything become the way it is.
Yeah. That's a good. I mean, it really is like I didn't know anything about the medical system until I watched or listened to that Corbett
Yeah.
kind of doc about. I think it's called Rockefeller Medicine, and I was just blown away, because I knew nothing about how medicine had came along, and I was like, wow, it really hasn't been that long, since it all
No, dude.
changed.
Yeah, it, like really like the 1880s, you're having like this battle between these like, and a lot, what I also found interesting was around that time, like 1850 to 1880, the good doctors that got paid a lot, they would go to Germany to be educated. And that was in the book I read, that because of your recommendation, Skull and Bones. Who's it by?
Oh yeah, Anthony Sutton.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's how so like these Skull and Bones people went, that was where they went to Germany they learned about Hegelianism and like, you know, getting all the power to the state and and so they came all back with that, and that was the same as the doctor. So it was truly like, and then those skull and bones people that got educated there went out to teach more universities. But it's just wild how it all stemmed from these people going to, you know, like it just made more connections, I guess, in my head about like how that book, how Skull and Bones did that by going to Germany. Same with all these elite doctors, they did the
Mhm.
same, which makes you think then like, so if it's kind of like they're siring the next generation. But so if you that's the elite doctor, you go work and study with that doctor as a younger person, you teach another doctor, just and it continues and continues and continues, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like it spreads like
Right.
wildfire, kind of,
Yeah.
and it lasts for so long. The influence, it's just unbelievable.
And they also in that time, they've once like 1900s hit, they valued the science part of the medicine more than like the physicians at one point. So that was like a another switch that they had to like use propaganda to get through. But it just reminds me of like today how much we truly, you know, the public loves the science, this scientist, and it was kind of like bred or propagandized into the public to do that back then as well. Like, oh, the science doesn't lie, because
Hmm.
all these people were trying to use homeopathic and go to like their rural neighborhood doctor that, you know, wouldn't lance them and give them arsenic and all this stuff like that to make them better. And now we're in the same spot today, just like a different era.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true, man. And, I remember I want to say maybe 4 or 5 years ago, could have been longer than that, but there was basically another war on homeopathics and minerals and different vitamins and different things like that. These drug companies, because they're in bed with the FDA, so the
Right.
FDA come down really hard on these different manufacturers or distributors of these different type of natural cures, because they don't want that. That hits them in the purse,
No.
and they want us. I mean, I don't see how anybody can deny that they want us addicted, not just on opiates, but they want us addicted to whatever they put out there, and, I'm not saying that some medicines, of course, cannot help you and don't help people and are
Right.
life saving, but it's just like anything else, you got to use some critical thinking and really kind of ask yourself if your doctor is helping you, or are they just giving you something that's going to make you have to pay that bill every month, and it's not really getting rid of the problem,
Right. Well, dude, and even now there's the issue with doctors get reviews, right? So they like you won't go to a doctor that gets a one-star review. So if you come in and you're, you know, unhealthy via you're overweight or whatever it may be, your doctor is not going to tell you, "Hey, you need to stop eating those donuts every morning for breakfast," because then they get a one-star review and then they
Hmm.
lose customers. And so this is just going to continue lead this like path of doctors will blame everything else. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's just the industry is in shambles.
Yeah, I was looking a while back when this whole cough got going, and we found out we're going to have to, get the pokes and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was looking at the posts that they've been working on for a while and promising that we're going to come out, and they've got a lot of them, for like smoking, and I think they have one for obesity and just different things. And I'm like, good grief, man. I don't know. I mean, it seems like the potential is endless for those type of things. And I think that's what we're going to see, with this whole mu, whatever,
Yeah.
this new variant. I mean, they're just going to keep coming and coming.
Yeah.
I saw a healthcare official from Australia, and she said she was a doctor too. Whatever their healthcare thing is, their NSH or whatever. But anyway, she was saying just straight out that, yeah, there's going to be lots of different, not variants. So that's what she was saying basically. But there's going to be a lot of different boosters and a lot of different pokes that you're just going to have to take from now on. I mean, she
Right.
was straight up about it. So, yeah, it's a long term thing.
And it's a victory, dude. Like this has been a long because and I kind of just said this, but like for everyone listening, like the elite Rockefeller and uh, Harriman and all these people, Hopkins, they all gave the money to start these medical schools in like the late, like I said, late 19th century. And so when they start funding, and their endowments and trusts continue to go. So they realize the potential in selling, instead of cheap drugs, it's a capitalistic medicine. So that's why there's so much money funded in to making these medications, whatever they need. And like you said, some of them may work, but there's no way this train is rolling, dude. Like
Mhm.
there's no stop. It's just going to continue
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
continue. Yeah.
And one thing I've noticed quickly, is coming out of the whole, like obviously I talked about how I came out of the conservative camp and I still have some conservative beliefs and stuff like that. But, the party and stuff is just,
Oh, it's a shit show.
yeah. But, I realized too, man, after like years and years of following these guys, like, especially like Rush and in the bigger ones that I used to listen to, it's like they kind of train you to always support private business, even though it's not exactly private. I mean, because I always talk about how it's kind of like a protectionist racket, because they've got all these different NGOs and stuff that court the government and lobbyists and stuff like that. So it's kind of like they're in there together at the top. But so they've trained people to never question private businesses, and so I'm seeing this online. It's like a lot of more Republican right-leaning people are still kind of, especially the older ones, are still kind of defending this whole big pharma thing. And I think it's just because of that, because, we've been trained to think, okay, the Democrats, they always defend government. Republicans always defend the private sector. But I think they want it that way because you've always got one half defending one of those entities.
Yeah.
At all times. But at all times, they're also always working together at the top. And
Right.
average people don't think about that,
Wow. You're right. You're absolutely right, dude. And I hate to keep going back to this book, but like they created the education system because they created this after the Civil War, and during the Civil War, industry is exploding. They need good workers. So they give all the general education board created by Rockefeller. So he picks the board and then kind of lets it go. But what are they going to? They're not going to teach beliefs that are antithetical to what he wants, right? So like,
yeah,
we get taught in school. It's like funny, like the boomer generation, communism, and I don't know, I don't have an opinion anymore. I don't know what's real, but they hate communism with a passion. Like that's to blame. Socialism's to blame. No government, like that libertarian kind of view, and it's just so ingrained in them that that's the evil.
mm-hmm.
And like, so it makes me, and just to lead, like how you said, they're supporting the big pharma, whoever, private industry, and it just makes you wonder, like, are they trained to fight, like to defend this belief? I don't know where I was really going with that, but yeah, just how like boomers tend to defend like private industry, I guess.
Yeah. And I really think, that the way the propaganda works on both sides is to always keep that faction defending their own worst enemy at all times, or at least part of their own worst enemies.
Nice.
And that's what happens, because like, I don't think average Republicans, especially the boomer types that we were talking about, have a clue about these NGOs and how they work, and the Rockefellers and Carnegies, and of course they know about Gates now, but they don't know that stuff's been going on for 40 years or something like that.
Absolutely.
I mean, the Carnegie Endowment's still like making textbooks and stuff, so it's like, and the Ford Foundation, I read in that book about the Satori and the Mandarins, the guy mentions in there that the Ford Foundation isn't even, like, there's nobody with the last name Ford that's even related to Ford in that foundation, and hasn't been in a long time.
Wow.
Not that he was like a saint or anything, but it's and I was reading, like, I didn't realize this because I'm like, what's up with this? The Ford Foundation, you don't see them quite as much as the Rockefellers and the Carnegies. They're big into Africa. Like they have a lot of stuff going
No
on in
way.
Africa, and all kinds of studies and all kinds of things that they've helped implement there through the government.
Interesting.
Yeah. So,
What kind of things are they doing there?
well, I haven't really delved into it too deeply. I just kind of discovered that last
Okay.
week. But yeah, like with just getting laws changed and
Oh, that's
education and
always good.
healthcare and all the things they say are for the greater good, but these are the guys that have been saying that here forever and making things worse. So
For the greater good. Oh,
yeah,
yes. So many things we do for the greater good. But that's interesting though about Ford being in. I wonder like how that happened, you know?
yeah. I'm curious to find out more about that. I wonder if there's any books on it. Probably not, but
That's the yeah. Yeah.
you try to find sometimes those like these, like I tried to find a good book that was critical of Ford Foundation and the Carnegie Endowment.
Yeah.
Haven't been able to find anything really. You
Huh.
can find some articles, but I'm like, these two are almost as prevalent as like the CFR and these other groups.
Right.
So
Well, and I mean Carnegie and they owned all those papers even back in the day. They paid for like I think it was I'm pretty sure it was Carnegie or maybe Harriman. One of them they bought like the communist paper and the like the pro freedom paper, and they own both of them. Just to like
yeah,
create chaos and to it's just scary, dude. Like how much we don't even know like what's propaganda, what's not propaganda. It's
yeah,
very challenging.
yeah. I post every now and then, far too much. I'll post about the repeal of the provisions in the Smith-Mundt Act. I think it was in 2012, and that was a bipartisan thing. With Obama signed it, but the Republicans were they were for it as well, and it repealed supposedly the law that kept them from propagandizing us, the
Right.
citizens. And I'm sure they were doing it anyway, but now they don't have to worry about pesky things like getting sued and being unconstitutional.
Right.
And so who knows what's real? Like you just said, who knows what's real, really? I mean, we know that there's different, like the CIA and the FBI and certain military, like the Army, the Air Force, the Marines, they have these Hollywood, what do they call them? Where they're offices that work directly with Hollywood to help them to do stuff and make sure the movies go the way they want them to go.
Right.
Liaison offices,
Right.
that's what they're
Right.
called. So, yeah, I mean, who knows what's out there that if anything's real at this point. I mean, we live in the, I don't want to get too crazy, but we live in the era of, deep fakes and
Right.
Photoshop. I mean,
Yeah.
Photoshop's been around forever. I mean, it's
Right.
wicked how good some of these things are.
Right. It's like indistinguishable.
Yeah.
I wanted to get your so in my I did an episode on the hidden gold in Japan, I'm sure, or in the Philippines. And so this author said, and I saw like in one of your episodes you talked about the enterprise, right? Like the enterprise, like as in being like a CIA type of government, like it's that's branched away from the federal, right? You were kind of
Um,
that.
I'm not sure if that was me or not. Like the CIA, like getting away from.
Yeah, like getting because so like basically what this book was saying was that they called it the syndicate, or maybe that's was the term you
This.
had, syndicate.
Okay, yeah, the syndicate. Yeah.
But so they were saying that like they all this gold that was found, is in untraceable bank accounts, accessible to whoever one they wanted to bribe, but it also was utilized for like the CIA, and they were blaming the John Birch Society and other right-leaning groups, but to use that money to like start their own kind of government to fight communism on all fronts and all just but like how Alan Dulles felt, like those guys at the sea, they hated communists, they would do
Mm.
all that espionage. But now it seems like that's totally gone. It's like flipped. Do you have
Hmm.
like an opinion, or what do you think like happened? You know what I mean? Because it's a total different, like they're not spying to stop communists anymore and to support. So what's your like take on that?
I wonder if people who really kind of lean towards communism, and I mean, not pure communism, because a lot of these people do, kind of want, they want like kind of like a fascist state with communist kind of goodies, like healthcare
Goodies.
and probably UBI and stuff like that. But yeah, they
Right.
definitely seem sympathetic to that kind of more socialist, communist kind of mindset. And I wonder if it's just the education system is just drilled that into people for so long that these people are now, and it seems like the more left-leaning people, they lean towards government anyway, getting those government jobs and trying to
Right.
get in there
Very
because
true.
they have that that such a strong belief in the state and being the answer to all of our problems. So I wonder if it's partly that, and partly
Hmm.
maybe
Like they got positions of power, you're saying?
yeah, yeah, and
Interesting.
I mean, it's always labeled, that kind of thing is always labeled for the greater good and for the, like I said before, and like for the people,
Mhm.
and I think that's drilled into people's heads that that kind of mindset is better than capitalism. But we don't even have capitalism. I mean,
No.
there's that, I think it's a quote by Ron Paul, if it's actually a real quote, but he said something like, what do you mean capitalism doesn't work? It hasn't even been tried yet. And
Mm.
I know you hear that about communism, but it's kind of funny because what we're talking about is
Right.
going back to like the 1800s. You had the Carnegies and and the Fords there, and it's like they've been so embedded in our government, in getting their people into our government. It hasn't been a pure free market because they had the monopolies on everything.
Right.
So where is this free market capitalism?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe at a fruit stand, or
Right.
something like that, but
Like
that's about it,
a
man. The
farmer's market. Yeah.
the farmer's market, a black market or something.
You're right, dude. And but that's so that's and that was like a big change that happened right in that 1850s. Before that, it was like still merchants, and I'm sure like some not like the Dutch India Trading Company or whatever. But there was not. This was unheard of in the world. This power that these people possessed, and it makes you wonder. Like, so another Anthony Sutton talked about this. Like, World War I was really started my what I think and what he kind of like alluded to was because you had German industrial capitalists and American industrial capitalists both wanted to get into Russia. So Germany was paying Lenin to overthrow the monarchy. America was paying Lenin to overthrow the Romanovs. And it was like these two powers trying to get their way in, and America got in because Germany was on the losing side of World War One. But it
Hmm.
must, and today I don't know. I think that most of that competition, I think now it's just fake fighting, right? Like I don't
Yeah,
think that there's a capitalist fighting in China, fighting America like they. What do you think about China?
man. I don't really know. My mind kind of vacillates back and forth. Are they this horrible enemy that really wants to overtake us, and they're the biggest enemy we have right now, or are the war hawks using them to scare us? Like they always have that one country they try to scare us to death,
Right,
so we'll be pliable and give up our rights and be like,
right.
oh, please save us, please spend trillions of dollars to save us, like,
Please,
you know
please.
so it's hard to tell, man. I wish I could tell you something more solid, but I just don't know. I haven't made up my
Yeah.
mind.
So yeah, I struggle as well too. I don't know, but I pulled up the one article. I'm sure you saw it. How, I mean, China's doing like I think a lot of good things, and I know that might like freak out some people, but they just banned video games for kids can only play video games 3 hours a night. And I know like I saw like the one libertarian like the government shouldn't be able to tell parents what to do, and I would my like response would be like you're right. Most parents they're great parents and they wouldn't let their kid play video games for more than 3 hours, but a lot of parents in America they aren't parents at all. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
if you're in like the empire game, if you're in the like let's make a huge strong country like that, they do all the things that in my mind would be what I would do to make sure my country is strong and continues to get better.
Hmm. Yeah, I get that. I mean, America slips so much, so much. It's so pitiful, man. And it's like it's never been perfect. No country's perfect, and no people are perfect. No one human is perfect. But I don't want to sound like an old codger, but things have changed so much, dude. And
Yeah.
it's it just seems like society is just slipping away, and
Yeah.
they've got us so distracted and so divided, and people have just gotten ridiculous. Of course, I don't have to tell you that people have gotten so ridiculous, they're not even making sense anymore. And so dialogue is gone. You might as well
Yeah.
forget about talking to somebody if they are on the left or the right.
Yeah.
Even if you're kind of like me and you, kind of not either one, but just
Yeah.
trying to make sense of everything, you're still an enemy, because
Oh yeah.
the minute you say something bad about their side or something that one of their guys does, then they automatically assume you're for the other team, and it's like, I'm just trying to talk about issues one by one,
Right. Yeah, dude, you have fear for your like job, it's
Yeah.
like the more, because when I first met, I always, I was on Team Trump, and now as I like keep reading and learning, I see how they make these issues so you can't like the other issue that's on the other side. Like I like a
Yeah.
lot of stance, like there should be a better wealth. There should be a, not such a huge wealth gap. There shouldn't be, people should all be able to live, as long as you work comfortably. You shouldn't have to only get paid 750 to work a job if that, but then
Yeah.
if you say that, then like, oh, you're a socialist and that's bad. But
Hmm.
they do this to just, they arbitrarily pick these lines so we'll never get anywhere. We'll just keep
No,
bickering over nothing.
it's true, man. It's sad. It's, because dialogue and conversation, I mean, that's how things get changed. That's how things get better. I don't see how they would ever get better if you're not even able to have a
No.
conversation. And it's bad. People are just grabbing a team and dying on the hill right there.
Yeah.
They're done.
Tell me what's your take on Afghanistan and them uh, leaving and that's the whole thing that happens.
Yeah, man. I mean, I got to stick to my original thoughts. At first, I wasn't so sure. I was like, are they going to go in now, use this as an excuse to just go in right now and
Mhm.
just decimate the place?
Right.
But now, and I also said this too earlier on too, I was like, they're either going to do that, or they've armed these guys purposely by leaving all those weapons behind and all that gear to set up a new Islamic Arab state that is really going to be powerful and require a big time war that's going to be much worse than it would be if they went in now and just
Mhm.
took care of everything.
Mhm.
So maybe, because we have such a history of them arming certain groups to fight other groups they don't like.
Right.
So I'm like, are they hoping that these guys will turn against Iran? Or, I don't know exactly what the deal is, because a lot of people say no, they'll join Iran, because Iran, you got to hate Iran's guts, and I'm sure they're dicks, but I always doubt if things are as bad as they say they are, because they
Right.
love to use other countries to scare us.
Yeah.
And I assume Iran's government's doing the same thing. So
Yeah, I'm
I
sure.
believe that they're setting up. I mean, because man, you think about it, with all those Council on Foreign Relations members that were in Biden's team, the
Mhm.
Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, CIA deputy, all these people. These people know what's going on, and you've got all these other generals and people behind the scenes, and colonels and strategists. You don't you don't just up and leave all your equipment there and
Oh,
all your weapons.
absolutely. Yeah.
$85 billion worth of equipment, I believe, is what I last heard.
Yeah.
So they had to do that for a reason. That would be, I can't imagine an F up that big
Right. Well,
on accident. I just can't imagine it. So
dude,
I think they've
how
got a plan.
how about all the fake conservative like uproar in this whole city? That's what's like cracks me up, dude.
Oh man, dude, I see people, especially on Boomer Book, Facebook,
Yes.
and it's like people my age and older, and it's like they are so easily moved by anything that comes out. Like they had just, I like to say this, they just stopped looking for for Muslims under their bed before they go to sleep. It just
Right.
stopped right under Trump because he was kind of more chill about that whole thing,
Yeah.
a little bit anyway. And now it's back, and they would go straight. They'd be totally cool if we went over there and dropped a nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's what they want.
Right.
I heard Dan Bongino say the other day,
Oh God.
if they dare hurt as much as a fingernail on our guys, we need to go in there and incinerate their dog, their family, anybody around them. And I'm like,
oh my God.
how is that any different than saying death to America?
Right.
I mean, I heard a general say, look, the Afghan forces that we trained, these guys had relatives who were in ISIS, relatives who were in the Taliban and Al Qaeda. They had friends and family who were in those things. So what do you expect?
Right.
So, I mean, it's just crazy, man.
I can't believe Bongino said that.
Yeah, I was like, wow, dude, think about all the civilian casualties that have already been killed in the war on terror. I mean, dude, I've seen estimates as much as, I don't know, maybe 2 million, 3 million.
Jeez, dude. Jeez.
So, it's just, it lets me know that I'm not wrong, that they can, the conservatives, they always support war. They have this false idea that supporting the troops means supporting the Pentagon and the DOD and anything they come up with.
Right.
And that's why I try to tell people, look, that these, like the Pentagon has been working with the Council of Foreign Relations for decades and decades. Almost every Secretary of Defense is a Council of Foreign Relations member.
Yeah.
And they want to get rid of borders and disarm us and do all these things that they hate. So it's just sad, man. It's
just in like the 13 lives. That's very sad, dude. Very sad. But like to act like that, you guys, are super, the impeached bot. It's just like, I feel like it is hyper energized to the max since Trump, and it's never going to end. There is no calming this.
I think you're right, man. Yeah. Because they think that the simple thing is let's impeach Biden, get rid of Biden, and it's like, dude, if you think Biden is the only problem, I mean, they don't understand how government works, and that's the simplest thing. They think it's a simple thing, a simple answer, black and white, just get rid of that guy.
Yeah.
And then you get what? Kamala?
Right.
And then who's going to be the VP? And then, I mean, you've got a whole cabinet filled with these globalists. So nothing's going to change. And it reminded me of that Carol Quigley guy who wrote Anglo-American Establishment and Tragedy and Hope, all about the Council of Foreign Relations and the whole globalist banker, corporatist guys. He had that famous quote. I can't remember it word for word, but he was basically like, the idea of having two parties that are completely different is a joke. He's like, only idealists believe in that. You need to have two parties who pretend to be somewhat different, but in reality, they're the same. That way, when people vote one guy out, they get another guy in, nothing changes. And he was saying that's what the globalists want. And that's what they get for the most part,
Absolutely.
Because they'll give you like 4 or 5, like they'll keep a couple of social issues that they pretend to disagree on. And just so people will fight each other. And then most of the other things they agree on, a few economic things here and there are different, but not that much different.
No, dude, that's a great quote because that's exactly what it is.
It's like the Green New Deal. It cracks me up, dude, because infrastructure and Green New Deal and Democrats are supposed to be like these, anti-big business, anti-corporate, but which they're not at all. They're like in bed with big monopolies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that would be the biggest gift to all these big monopolies in corporate America that's since, I don't know, ever probably.
A bailout. Yeah.
Because they're going to give them these guaranteed contracts that are worth gazillions, and they're going to go in and do all this stupid shit that's
Dude, absolutely. Yeah.
And anytime some big bill like that's passed, they can't account for millions of dollars. And it's
bill. Yeah. Absolutely, dude. That's such a good quote though, because it really like there's this awesome meme or what it's like a person running and it says Democrat and then there's like a parachute and that says Republican. And like I see things from like internet personalities that like Lady MAGA and these people, she's like dresses as a girl, as a boy. And I see these like and I like look, I'm like, what is the difference between you and there is no difference. Like
Yeah.
maybe you've different feelings on guns. Okay. But besides that, dude, there's so few differences. You guys you believe the same thing. Both of you are afraid to be called like, a phobic of something. And you both call the other one a racist or you're a phobe, whatever. It's like, dude, they're the same. They're literally the same.
I know. And it's like, we seem like we're more divided than ever, at least, since I've been alive. Right. But, when you look at the parties, they're more alike than ever. Like, like I said, they keep a few issues that they differ on, but like conservatives have gotten more and more liberal, right?
Yeah.
They're not getting more conservative.
Yes.
Not as a majority. And then the liberals are getting so liberal that they're almost about to turn back towards the right. I think they actually are. So it's like, what we got here, I mean, you could not convince people of that because they think they're so different. But
right. Dude, that's a tweet right there. That's an Oddman tweet. The more we think we argue because we think we're different and I don't know how you said it, but that's exactly it, dude. They think that they're completely different, but their beliefs are super similar. Like
yeah.
I was got started on this because of China, but I don't know how much of it's real or not, but I also saw like China's limiting, like they took away actors that were like people were giving too much attention to, and also they banned putting sissy men on the TV. But those things there sound awesome.
Right.
So proud, dude. I mean, I hope they take us over at this point, dude. But yeah,
I know, man. I saw some ad right before we got on Twitter, and it was like, I guess a new Cinderella, and the fairy godmother is a gay black dude.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, it's everywhere,
like
everywhere, man. It's disgusting. And it's like, and dude, I got to tell you quickly, it's so different. Like my son, he was in this small country school for up until this year, which is 6th grade. And now he's going to this school that's like, for some reason, it's in the downtown area and it's way far away from the other school. And so you've got all these kids, like these urban kids and different kids coming from all these other schools. It's a huge school.
Right.
And dude, it's like, I go there and pick him up quite a bit. And the first day when he came home from school, I was like, how was it? And he's like, it's like all goth and lesbians.
Wow,
I'm like,
dude.
But he's right. And it's like all these kids, and he's telling me all these stories about these kids who are confused about their genders and all this stuff. This was not an issue whatsoever at the other school.
Right.
Because it was in an area where people don't put up with that BS. And, so it's like anything that comes out in the mainstream when people are young, they're susceptible. And so they're going to go for it. And so now just all this propaganda has got these kids so confused. It's so sad, dude, because that was never an issue. There's a lot more important things than that. And they don't know how to communicate. They think that the world's against them. They're inventing reasons why the world is against them and why they can be a victim. Mm-hmm. It's just pitiful, man, what they've done to society. It really is.
Well, dude, I mean, we're like primed for the full enslavement and taking, and you're right, dude. Like that confusion. There's so many your hormones are going crazy as a teenager. You're self-conscious, and now you throw in this. Am I maybe another gender? Am I maybe whatever? When you're just like a confused kid. And
and it would be one thing if it's just either straight or gay. That would be one thing. Okay. People, I think people have the right to be whatever they want to be, of course. Yeah. But now you're getting all these other different genders and different labels, and it's just insane.
Yeah.
It's too much for a child, teenager, and adolescent. He said, because like he goes to this after school things sometimes, and it's like out west in the nicer area, but
Okay.
like he was telling us last year, and this was the first time he'd ever encountered any of that there were like 9-year-olds saying that they were trans, or they're
No
this or they were
way.
that. And you're like,
Wow.
they don't even, you need to be playing with toys and enjoying your life.
Right. That
And it's
is,
so
dude.
sad.
I would love to see I saw like the numbers for like people that identify as homosexual. It was like, I'm born in 1990. I think my generation, or like the generation before, it was like 0.003% in like boomers, 0.03% in like maybe right, like your generation. Then my generation's 3%. And now it's like 15 to 17% that identify as
Oh my gosh.
homosexual. And that is
Wow.
I mean, that is quarter, or not a quarter, whatever, a huge part of the population. And maybe you are, but I'm not, who am I to judge you? But nature, that's a huge chunk of, if it's, it's like the animal kingdom, 15% of
Mhm.
dolphins are not homosexual dolphins, right? It's just
Yeah.
it's it's great. If you're trying to run a depopulation agenda, you're doing a great job, right?
Man, you just took the words right out of my mouth. I was about to say that. Yeah. Yeah, man. And, it's not just kids who are really susceptible and naive.
Oh
I
no.
mean, man, how people are. I hate to be mean, but average people are dumb as rocks. And
Yeah, they
and they don't
are.
have, it's not that they don't have the ability to think, but they just don't think. They just
No.
go along with the flow, and they're very easily moved to do this, that, or the other. And so, yeah, I mean, it's not just kids that are confused. There's a
No.
lot of adults out
You're
there that,
so right, dude.
and people
Yeah.
want to be a victim now, and they want to belong to something. And if they can come up with some smaller subset of society that they can belong to and get more attention that way, then they're going to do it.
Someone I saw like the tweet was like, in the hippie movement, they're like, I don't want no labels, man. And now we love labels, or that, like
Oh
that
yeah.
group. And it's funny how that, like, I don't want to be labeled and thought of in a box. And now it's like, that's the exact opposite. Everyone is running to get in a box and to come up with
Yeah,
their interesting new label to refer to them as.
that's true, man. I never thought about that. You're right. I can still remember people saying that when I was like
Oh,
a
really?
teenager. Yeah, and kind of getting into music. I was into heavy metal and stuff like that. And it was like, yeah, don't label me, man. So yeah, that's so funny how things have changed. And
Yeah.
how media and the news is so influential in movies and TV, pop culture. And we know that certain ABC agencies are pop culture creators,
Right.
and have been for a long time. So, but they probably don't even have to be anymore, because once you inject it into into society, it just like breeds like
Yeah. It becomes
because
like the
those
vanguard.
because the degenerates in Hollywood and the people in
Right.
entertainment and stuff, they're just disgusting people
Yeah.
who have no morals for the most part anyway. And so they probably don't care at all what they're doing to society, most of them.
Right. Yeah.
And
You're
they're
right.
also and they're also victims of this whole thing too, a lot of them. So
Yeah. But you're right. They like plant that seed, and that's all. They probably can just like let it ride. Maybe some course correction at times, but we're so tribal, people just jump on that idea and they think it's right. And uh,
what did you think of Kanye with Marilyn Manson?
oh,
Did you
no, I didn't see that.
Yeah,
What?
apparently he was seen with Marilyn Manson a couple of times recently. And he's
No
supposed to have
way.
this conversion as a Christian. And of course, Marilyn Manson he really is a satanic priest. I thought that was just a rumor,
Yeah.
but he actually was ordained as a satanic priest. And I think he was
Wow.
actually he was affiliated with the Satanic Church, because the book I read about LaVey, it talked about it a little bit.
Interesting. Well, he's being sued for like, you know, pretty rough sexual assault, like
Hmm.
tying people up.
Yeah.
That's
Those,
funny though that he was with them.
yeah, I'm like, what is this guy? I mean, he's just obnoxious. And that's another thing. I'll say this quickly. That drives me crazy about conservatives. It's like, and you probably realize this too, but like they would jump on any celebrity who appeared to be on their side. They're like, that's my boy, and like I'm all, and I'm like, dude, you cannot trust Kanye. I mean, this guy is insane, and and he is a pretty good artist and everything, but like, what was her name? Roseanne. Remember Roseanne?
Yeah.
Like, did
Oh
something,
my God.
and she was like, I forget what it was now. Oh, she made fun of Jarrett, the lady Jarrett, said she looked like an ape or something.
Right. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I guess conservatives came to her aid, like they were defending her because it was stupid. It was just a joke, and she didn't. It wasn't even that bad. But then all of a sudden, conservatives were just sure that she was on their side, and she ran for the Green Party a few years ago as their president, and that's like as leftist as you can get. They're socialists. Dude. So I'm like, dude, you cannot trust these people.
She had Bishop Larry Gators on her show. Here's a podcast. She's all in, dude. Her mind is gone. But yeah.
Oh wow. What? Yeah, he's a character. I don't know what to think about that guy. Don't trust him, man. No. I wouldn't trust him as far as I can throw him.
No. Well, I mean, I always love having you on, dude. If anyone isn't following Oddman, go follow him. But where can they find you?
Yeah, man. So I'm on most podcast players. So if you go to I'm on podbean.com, but most of the ones, if you go in and click on the Oddcast, FT, the Oddman Out, it'll bring my show up. I'm also, if you want to go to alternatecurrentradio.com and just scroll down, I'm like the 4th or 5th show down through there. So it's it's really easy to find on there. And on Instagram and Twitter, it's _ the Oddman Out.
Nice, dude. Well, I always love talking to you. This movement has brought me you, as lame as that is. It's like a new friend, the internet. So thanks for being on the show. I really appreciate it. And we'll talk, I'm sure, tomorrow.